Chapter 1. The Last Conversation. Ash drifted in lazy spirals through the stagnant air, settling in silent layers over the broken consoles and splintered glass. The laboratory, once a cathedral of ambition, now reduced to a mausoleum, stretched out around Tim like the inside of a skull, echoing every distant groan of the collapsing structure. He sat hunched on a twisted support beam, his knees drawn up, hands raw and trembling in the cold. The sky outside the shattered window was a bruise, purple, sickly yellow, streaked with veins of fire from the dying sun. Tim stared at his reflection in a fragment of glass. Gaunt cheeks, haunted eyes ringed in shadow, lips cracked by wind and thirst. He hardly recognized himself. He wondered if he should. Somewhere behind him, something heavy gave way with a thunderous crash, sending a tremor through the floor. Dust sifted down from the ceiling tiles like grey snow. He heard Crabby before he saw him, boots crunching over debris, the scrape of metal against concrete. Crabby's silhouette emerged from the gloom, shoulders hunched beneath a stained lab coat that hung from him like a shroud. His voice was a rasp, sandpaper over old wounds. "You're still here," Crabby said, not as a question. Tim didn't look up. "Where else would I go?" Crabby snorted, bitter amusement twisting his mouth. "Anywhere but here, I'd think, unless you've grown fond of ghosts." A pause stretched between them, taut as wire. Then Crabby limped closer, favouring his left leg, a souvenir from the last riot in the holding pens, perhaps. His eyes were wild, red-rimmed from sleeplessness or grief. "I suppose you're waiting for the cavalry?" Crabby continued. "Or maybe absolution. Neither's coming." Tim turned the shard of glass over in his hands, watching blood well up where it bit into his palm. "You think I don't know that?" Crabby's laugh was short and sharp. "You always thought you were above it all, watching people break from behind your clipboard, running your simulations while we," he gestured broadly at the ruins, "got our hands dirty." Tim felt anger stir, feeble but persistent. "We all signed the same papers. You think I wanted this? You think any of us did?" "Don't give me that," Crabby snapped. "You wrote the protocols. You made the decisions." His voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "You sent them in there." Tim closed his eyes, remembering. The white corridors, the sterile light, the screams muffled by glass partitions and layers of bureaucracy. He remembered names, some real, most numbers, and how easily they blurred together when he needed to sleep at night. "Someone had to," he said finally. "Did they?" Crabby spat on the ground. "Did anyone have to do any of this?" A silence fell then, heavy as lead. Footsteps echoed through the corridor, slow and uneven. Dwayne appeared in the doorway, a hulking figure wrapped in torn fatigues, one leg dragging behind him in awkward jerks. His face was pale beneath a crust of dried blood. His right arm hung limp at his side. "Enough," Dwayne said quietly, his voice like gravel underfoot. He eased himself onto an overturned crate, breath ragged. "If we're going to tear each other apart, at least wait until morning." Crabby glared at him, but subsided with a grunt. Dwayne glanced between them. Exhaustion etched deep into his features. "It's over. All of it." He looked at Tim. "No one's coming back for us. Not the brass, not the test subjects' families. No one cares." For a moment none of them spoke. The only sound was the building's death rattle, the groans and sighs of steel surrendering to time. Tim stared at his bleeding hand, flexing his fingers until pain sharpened his thoughts. "I used to believe we could fix things," he said softly, "that if we just worked harder, if we pushed past the failures, we'd find something worth all this." He waved vaguely at the devastation around them. Crabby's jaw clenched. "And what did we find, Tim? What did we save?" Dwayne's gaze drifted to the ceiling, as if searching for answers among the ruined girders and flickering light. "We lost ourselves," he murmured. The words hung in the air like smoke. Tim remembered Anna's smile, the way she'd laughed when they'd first arrived at the facility, before the first round of tests soured her optimism. He remembered her eyes after Subject 47 died on the table, how she'd stopped looking at him after that. He remembered too many names. Anna, Doctor. Kessler, Subject 12, Elias, Subject 19, Mira. The guards from Section C who never made it out after containment failed. He pressed his palm to his forehead and tried not to cry. Crabby broke the silence first, voice trembling with fury and regret. "Do you remember Mira? She was just a kid, 15, 16 at most, and you told me she was strong enough for Phase 2. He jabbed a finger at Tim. "She wasn't. She volunteered, Tim whispered. She didn't know what she was volunteering for, Crabby roared. Dwayne winced and pressed his good hand to his side, where blood seeped through torn fabric. All those promises, Dwayne muttered. A cure for radiation sickness, immunity from nerve agents, super soldiers. He coughed, a wet, rattling sound that echoed in the dark. All we made was more suffering. Tim looked up at last, meeting their gazes in turn. I tried to stop it, he said hollowly. When I realized what Phase 3 would do, what it meant, I went to Kessler. And he shut you down, Dwayne said quietly. Tim nodded. Crabby shook his head, incredulous. You should have gone public. With what? Tim's voice cracked with old frustration. With rumors? With classified files that no one would believe? They would have buried us right alongside everyone else. Crabby slumped against the wall and wiped his face with a shaking hand. So we did nothing, he said flatly. Tim could not argue. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time, and dust rained down in thick sheets as another section of roof caved in somewhere far away. They huddled together amid memories and accusations as daylight faded toward dusk, each man adrift on his own tide of guilt. Dwayne spoke first when silence threatened to choke them all. My brother died here, he said softly. One of the first volunteers, Subject 3. His eyes glittered with unshed tears. I joined up thinking I could keep him safe. He gave a dry laugh that caught in his throat. They didn't even let me see him at the end. Crabby looked away, jaw tight. Tim swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Dwayne shook his head slowly. Sorry doesn't change anything. He looked up at Tim and Crabby both. But neither does blame. Night crept into the ruins, a slow black tide swallowing edges and erasing distance. The emergency lights overhead flickered uncertainly before guttering out one by one, plunging them into darkness, relieved only by distant flashes of lightning through broken windows. In that void, voices softened. Confessions spilled out like blood from an open wound. Crabby spoke of his daughter, the letters he never sent, how he'd promised her he was making the world safer for her future, while knowing deep down it was a lie. Dwayne spoke of dreams haunted by faces he couldn't save, how every night he heard their screams anew. Tim found himself telling them about Anna, how her laughter had faded into silence long before her body followed suit, how he still waited for forgiveness that would never come. Their words faded with their strength until only silence remained, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow even memory itself. Outside, thunder faded into rain, a gentle patter on broken stone. Tim sat alone as Crabby and Dwayne drifted into uneasy sleep, or something close to it. He watched shadows crawl across what remained of the laboratory floor until there was nothing left but blackness, inside and out. He pressed his lips together and whispered into that void. There's nothing left now. Not hope, not forgiveness, only ruins. His voice vanished into darkness as complete as grief. And so ended their last conversation, words spent like currency in a world where nothing could be bought back again.